And what happens if the government tried to force you to pay it?
Well, they can't, because when I'm put in prison, they automatically stop my benefits. So how can I pay any money that when I haven't got any benefit going into my account anyway? It's just a non-stop circle. It's ridiculous. When they come out, it takes 6 weeks before you even get like £54 to last you. You've been out for 6 weeks out of prison. Of course you're going to turn back to crime to earn money. This is the whole thing about it, because they know you're going to go round in a circle and you're going to go, boss, I've got no dole money, I've got nothing to live on, boom, I'm going to go back to crime. It's just a never-ending circle. It's a nasty, vicious circle.
The Criminal Courts Charge was introduced in April to shift some of the burden of supporting the courts from taxpayers to offenders. We've not been able to find out how much money the charge has raised so far. First, our Freedom of Information request was rejected, and then we were told that the figures would be released next month anyway. But it's not just defendants who don't like the Criminal Courts Charge. Bernard Hunter has served as a magistrate in North East London for more than 12 years. He resents a law that requires him to impose the charge on all adult offenders, regardless of how poor they are and regardless of the other penalties they receive.
The level of fines and costs and so on and so forth has already been set at a level which was perceived to be just. Ergo, this must be unjust. Or they got it wrong first time round.
And Mr. Gove, the Justice Secretary, seems to be wavering slightly.
I should hope so.
Because?
Because it's potty. I mean, apart from anything else, apart from the justice of it, how much money is going to be generated? It's not going to achieve the objectives of underwriting the Ministry of Justice's costs.
Yes, because it's £150 or £180 if you plead guilty in the magistrates' court, but £520 or as much as £1,000 if you plead not guilty and you're convicted after a trial, that the higher charge applying to more serious offences that are triable either way. So even £150 must be quite a lot for some of the defendants who appear before the magistrates' court.
Yes, I mean, the practice in the past, and all the guidance we've been given, is that you take account of people's income, disposable income, and the principle we've always abided by is that there should be equal pain, no matter what your means are. So a rich person, the penalty should hurt them proportionately the same as a poor person. Now, in the past, we've been reasonably successful in engineering that through the guidelines, but this just drives a coach and horses through it.
And it's in addition to other penalties?
Yeah, I mean, the charges we impose are typically a fine, a contribution towards the prosecution costs, a victim surcharge, compensation maybe, and then this is a fifth one.
Some of those penalties may be adjusted according to the offender's income, but this one is a flat fee, and you have to impose it even though you've already imposed these other charges.
Yes, and you're not allowed to reduce the other charges in the light of imposing this one either.
And it's more expensive if you plead not guilty and are convicted after a trial.
Yes.
How do you feel about that?
Well, the obvious effect of that is that somebody who is poor, who isn't sure whether they're going to be found guilty or not, is going to be persuaded to plead guilty to avoid this charge.
But that's saving court time, and I suppose as a matter of principle, the people who appear before the courts ought to pay for the courts.
I'm not convinced by that principle, but even if you allow for that principle, the level of the charge and the lack of discretion is giving us an unjust system, a profoundly unjust system, which is targeting the poor.
Profoundly unjust because you can't adjust the level of the charge according to the means of the offender.
Yes.
This charge applies only to offences committed after the 12th of April this year, so not many of them have come through. Have any come before you?
No. I have taken 3 months' leave of absence to avoid having to be in court and hence impose this charge.
You say you've taken 3 months' leave of absence, but you're due to sit again, what, next week?
Yeah, a week on Monday, I think.
And will you go to court and sit?
No.
Why not?
Because I would be expected to impose this charge, or it is likely that a case will come up with a charge needs to be imposed, and I won't do that.
Why won't you do that? It's the law.
Yeah, I'm afraid I answer to a higher authority than the law, and that's my conscience. The reason I became a magistrate was incompatible with applying this charge.
So what you're saying now is incompatible with staying a magistrate?
Yes.
You're resigning?
Yes.
On this programme?
Yes.
That's a pretty drastic thing to do just because of one law you don't like.
The law is a fairly blunt instrument, and there are a number of times where you find yourself imposing a sentence which you think, well, is that quite right? It's inevitably a blunt instrument. It's got to cover the whole spectrum. And, we're real people. We understand that. But this is so systemically unjust that it just goes beyond the boundaries of anything else that one might not like.
And what about magistrates like you? How do you feel about being forced to resign over this change in the law and give up an occupation that obviously means a lot to you?
Yeah, I'm quite angry about that, but, I have to do what I have to do.
Bernard Hunter, resigning here on Law in Action from his unpaid post as a magistrate. We asked the Ministry of Justice to respond, but no minister was available. The Justice Secretary Michael Gove did say last week that the Criminal Court's charge was generating revenue, although he also said that the government was reviewing its operation, which suggests he may be looking for a way out of it. But any reform of the charge would come too late for dedicated lay magistrates like Bernard Hunter.